Welcome to episode 10 of the Due North Political Podcast. You got your four normal hosts. How you guys doing?
I don't
Doing
know about
great.
normal, but yeah, I'm here.
Mike, we're going to let you introduce our guest tonight, okay?
Yeah, we're going to start out right away with our hot seat spotlight. And today we have with us the man with the receipts, Dustin Grage. And Dustin is a Minnesota-based conservative columnist and political analyst, and we're excited to have him on the show today. And Dustin, why don't you go ahead and just give us a brief history of yourself and how you got to where you are today, and then we'll lead into some questions we have for you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me. But yeah, I guess the story starts like with a lot of people in politics. I just started working in campaigns as an operator. I think my journey kind of started in 2012. I was going to go help this guy, Ron Paul, run for president. So that was me in college. I was really into Ron Paul. Eventually, then it took me into a bunch of other campaigns. So I ended up campaign managing for a couple local state rep and Senate seats. Ended up working for the MNGOP here in Minnesota. Eventually, that led to a lot more opportunities. I was the executive director of the College Republicans here, president of the Un-Americans for Liberty. Eventually went on to a bunch of statewide campaigns as well. Probably a recent one was Jim Schultz for Attorney General here in Minnesota. We lost by 1 percentage point to Keith Ellison, so we're hoping to get him this next time around. But yeah, no, journey started operator, consultant. I've done everything field to digital to comms to managing. But then one day, this guy named Tim Walz, vice president under the ticket of Kamala Harris, and kind of the rest is history after that. But I was in a very peculiar position where I had, a decent following on social media. I maybe had 10,000 followers on Twitter, which is a really good following. But when you had that attached with all of the experience and the oppo I had on this guy, and nobody in the country apparently knew anything about the guy. I started tweeting out receipts. People in my circle that were maybe bigger people in the political sphere, like a Dana Lash, so forth. They start putting stuff. Cernovich is another guy who was helping us during the Attorney General's race here in Minnesota. And then it just kind of blew up. By the end of that election, ended up having like 60,000, and then fast forward today, it's now over 140,000 something. And I've just been kind of keeping that up since. I've moved to kind of away from operating, do a little bit on the side, just as a volunteer, kind of stay out of the paid stuff. But now I just kind of, I do pieces. I do more commentary on politics and all that comes with that. But yeah, that's kind of where I ended up to how I got there.
We appreciate you slumming tonight, Dustin, okay? Dustin,
we're
we
only
start
about
out
137,000 behind you as far as Twitter followers. So we're
we
catching
start
up.
out we start out each show with the jobs of Rubio. So before we get to the spotlight, we like to start with a little humor. So I'm gonna bring these up, guys. We got this one. He's servicing the pool out at the reflecting pool. Looks like it needed a little work over the past, because for some reason the left does not want a reflecting pool. They want algae. So Rubio had that job. And then, of course, the British Prime Minister had to resign. So he offered himself up for that job. And then he did his normal job, which is reporting to President Trump.
Oh, no. We need Buc-ee's all over Germany.
Yep, that's where we're at. So we're going to start the spotlight tonight. Dustin is, like he said, an expert of all things Minnesota. We've got a big election. The governor is no longer going to be serving or running in Minnesota. Ellison is on the ballot. So in the spotlight tonight, we've got some questions. He's a political operative. We're going to start with Mike's question first.
Sure. Well, my question to you, Dustin, is when you have a Democrat governor and a Democrat attorney general, how can you possibly put an end to the fraud that Minnesota has seen? And how can they, the Democrats, how can they possibly win any elections going forward if they don't address these issues? Are you telling me that there's really more than half the voters in Minnesota that are okay with their tax dollars being plundered like it is? And how can the Democrats hide from this issue, or do they even need to hide?
Yeah, I mean, it's getting harder and harder to hide from it at the end of the day. When we look at some of the polling, and I guess just to start a little bit before that, the demographics and the makeup of Minnesota. Statewide elections, I mean, we're horrible. We're tied with California. That is the last time we've won a statewide election. We are tied with California for dead last in the country right now. It's over 20 years since we've elected statewide. However, when it comes to the state legislature, we've frequently had the House or the Senate on and off year after year after year. We're actually one of the purplest states in the country. Oftentimes we will have one or two chambers, but we just don't have these statewide offices ever. So in short, the maps and how the state legislative goes, we're actually very split in Minnesota. So why do we lose these other seats? Well, a lot of it comes down to the infrastructure. The MNGOP has none. The DFL has a giant machine that they've built up over decades with some of these outside groups. I mean, the Rockefeller family alone pumps millions and millions of dollars into the state and has single-handedly given the Democrats this advantage that they've had over the years. Now, like I said, it's getting harder and harder for them to ignore all this stuff because one of the things before was nobody knew about this guy named Tim Walz. Well, there's a reason for that. A lot of the media infrastructure here as well, they buy into that. They know that there's going to be a Democrat, the U.S. Senator is going to be a Democrat, and they just kind of give them all these good press and stories. That's how you're going to get those stories over and over. You have to be friendly with the people to actually get that influence and that insider track on it as a newscaster. So they're friendly with them for all these years. And one of the consequences of that is they don't do their jobs the way they're supposed to. And then they get away so much year and year after year compounding. And then this guy named Walz runs for vice president. Now we have a national spotlight in Minnesota. And with that, we were able to take this stuff that people were just ignoring before. Now people started attention and wanting to hear about it. Take stories to Fox News, and eventually it became unavoidable to ignore the stuff. I just laughed too because this fraud in particular, this was brought up during the vice presidential stuff. I was tweeting about it every other week. Nobody paid attention until October or November of 2025, over a year later after the election. So this stuff it knew, but what ended up happening is, then a lot of friends, like a good friend of mine, Nick, comes to Minnesota. Surely I didn't know him too well at the time, but he started to make his way. I gave him a couple tips on where to go in Minnesota. Went to St. Cloud, came back to Minneapolis. And Chris Rufo also wrote a big piece that kind of blew up the national scale a little bit on the fraud, but it was a 10-year-old story. He just brought it back to the forefront. And then, of course, Nick just really broke with his YouTube video. I mean, ultra viral. Richest man in the world to share it over and over and over. It's the most viral not YouTube, but X video in the history of the site. Completely changed the game, which then resulted in all of these dominoes falling today to where now you just can't ignore it. In particular, the fraud issue. Now, when we look at that, these polling numbers, our strongest candidates like Elisa Damoth and Ryan Wilson for governor and lieutenant, or a Michelle Tafoya running for U.S. Senate. These other ones, they're double digits behind category, but these two strongest ones, they're within single digits. However, when you specifically leverage the issue of fraud against a candidate like Peggy Flanagan, who is the current lieutenant governor, and you also take that and run that against Amy Klobuchar, Now these candidates are within 1% or even leading in internal polling when you leverage fraud issue. So the fraud issue, it's here in the state. Independents are pissed. Republicans are really pissed. And some Democrats are in this happened. I went to a flip district here in the West Metro of Minnesota. No, it's actually Northwest Metro of Minnesota. And he bumped into 2 Democrats on his 100 identified. They were just knocking on every door. They said they're so upset with the fraud that they're voting Republican this cycle. Happening. People are upset with it, and there is a groundswell. It's actually going to hopefully flip the script. But I said before is Republicans have a tool that we haven't had in decades, and that's that the media ignore it. Even local media do try to spin some pretty wild narratives. I mean, we just saw a couple today with transies in girls sports. They were saying how it's a step backward for trans athletes. It's like, oh no, these are boys going to check your daughter into the board hockey. This is what we're talking about. It's not a back step trans people. This is a step forward for girls. So you'll see narratives like it's spun by eventually. It's become to a point where they're getting ratioed on any platform, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, especially Twitter. They're getting ratioed on all this stuff because people are starting to see through the BS. And that gives us a lot of hope going forward, Michael. And I mentioned Schultz at the beginning as well, Attorney General candidate. We also had Ryan Wilson run for state auditor. He came with an even closer margin. It was less than half a percentage point. I think it was 8,000 votes total in Minnesota, 5.5 million people, 8,000 votes for another statewide race. We are right on the cusp of winning a statewide race for the first time in 20 years.
Ryan, let's get your question. Let's get your question for Dustin.
Well, Minnesota, I just want to comment, Minnesota was the only state in the nation to vote for Walter Mondale for president. So there's that.
Well, he's one of our own, you know. He just had to get that extra 3,000 votes needed to win it.
Minnesota here has a statewide Republican leadership in the past, but as you've talked about here now, but it's been a while. None of them, the Arne Carlsons, the Tim Palentis, the Norm Colemans, none of them were ever that far to the right of the political spectrum. They were more, center right, if anything, at the time, at least when they were governing. But knowing that, and after we've seen in the past few election cycles for statewide offices here in Minnesota, is it the Republican leadership, or is it to a greater extent the average Republican voting in the primaries? Are they serious about winning statewide elections, or do they care more about nominating and voting for someone in the primaries that's hard right, even if they have little chance of winning a statewide election?
So, and a slight twist on that. So the primary voters, important. It's more the delegates in particular in this state. The delegates want to put, red meat. And don't get me wrong, I'm all there too. About electable statewide. Alabama is more when it comes to my policy electable here in the state of Minnesota, as you might realize. But the delegates, there's the system, and everyone has a degree, but I mean, we're a true caucus system where they'll do the local school at a kitchen table and talk politics, and you'll elect delegates. They'll make their way to the BPA county level, to the congressional level and the statewide level, and 2,500 people make these decisions on who the endorsed candidate is. Now, Minnesota, we just don't get a lot of love, and also we don't even recruit that great of a field of candidates typically. So when they make their way to the state convention, these delegates are just gung-ho on, this is who I want representing me, rather than, taking a reality pill and going, we haven't won in 20 plus years. Maybe we need to moderate a little bit on some issues so we can actually win the suburbs of Minneapolis, St. Paul, and actually win an election for the first time. but they don't like to do that. To the point where these candidates, Michelle Tafoya and Lisa Damath, went out there and were like, we have millions of dollars on hand. Some of these candidates will not be making payroll next week. And they still got nominated. Because this of far right people, and I'm one of those people. I complain all the time about Republican leadership in this state on how we offer on some things. But at the end of the day, we need legitimate candidates who can actually function in a election. This time, we're going to set a lot of new state precedent here in Minnesota. For all that time, the plus years, the endorsed candidate has never. Now, why is that? Simply put, a lot of these candidates aren't well prepared. They don't hire the best staff. They don't know how to campaign. So when the endorsed candidates up there, and all growing there too, you might have more than just one-on-one. You're gonna have 3, 4, 5 candidates in some cases. The endorsed candidate's gonna win because they get to have the disposal of the county parties, national parties. They get their donor lists, and they get propped up just a little bit more probably than they should. And then they end up winning the prime through that process. It is going to be very different. Well, so right now the endorsed candidates are Ken Walz, Brian Nicholson, I believe is his name, for lieutenant governor, and Adam Schwarzy, which me and his policies, we align very well. These candidates combined maybe have 100K. And if I were to guess, one candidate had to take out a $100 loan ahead of the state, had no money. So they have nothing in the bank. They don't have a statewide operation that can win the state, especially when Amy Klobuchar has millions of dollars, as well as Angie Craig or Peggy Flanagan. But Michelle Tafoya has outraised Peggy Flanagan, the current Democrat lieutenant governor, is the nominee. Republicans will be out of the gate, have more money than the Democrat candidate for U.S. Senate. That isn't heard of. Same with, he has a PAC that's probably raised over $5 million by the time the primary comes around, primary day comes around. And right out of the gate, coming out of the state convention, she had $100,000 cash on hand, while the other kings had $10K after that. So, yeah, then this creates an ecosystem also of poor candidates in the general election, because prop up weaker candidates, they get this process in their favor. And then when they're on the November ballot, they get crushed a lot of the time. And in spite of our statewide candidates getting crushed because this system just doesn't work that well anymore, we still win legislative bodies more than half the time. So I have a lot of hope for the state, but ultimately that's kind of the system and how we kind of where we are today. It's issues compounding, whether it's the media, the decades of infrastructure of Democrats versus Republicans, and maybe recruiting out the greatest of candidates. But this cycle, I mean, we're just compounding the other direction when it comes to all this stuff. So, yeah, we have a great shot here going into November.
Leon's going to give you a little pushback now, right, Leon?
Whoa. Dude, now I'm listening to you, and I respect the hell out of you, man. I do. And I understand the game plan. I do. But you got a guy like me. I'm salty. I'm getting older. I'm long in the tooth. I'm a Tea Party guy. You know, I'm that guy. So when I see establishment, like my last show, last Friday, Blackbeard Logic, I talked about this scheme that the Democrats have been using that I think that we're picking up now. The electability, I call it the electability scam. And that's where you put these candidates up and they poll well in the suburbs. And the thing that does to me, and I promise you there's a question. I'm getting to it. But you got guys like me that are sitting here, like here in North Dakota, you go through the convention process and all of that. And then everyone that we pick, the guys, the grassroots, the feet on the ground, we our district chairs, we do the whole thing. We do all the things, and we get our candidates up there, and then the big money comes in and just buys up all of their candidates, and that's our slate of candidates now. I have a problem with that. I see the Democrats pushing this and have been pushing this, and they'll run the women. They'll run the beta boys. They'll run the people that are more digestible to the suburbs. And I heard you say that. And so I'm going to bring it back to Minnesota. And my question is, like, I've heard you endorsing Michelle Tafoya. A lot of my friends here in North Dakota have been doing the same, like the Scott Hannons, the big conservative talk people here. But I argue that she's the classic electable pick. She's polished. She's consultant driven. She was at one point a never Trumper. She had ties to McConnell and AIPAC. She has backed amnesty. She's pro-choice. She supported red flag laws. The whole thing. But she polls better. She brings a war chest. And my question to you is, are we trying to win by any means, even if that means the soul of this country is eroded back because we have beta boys and soccer moms that just want to be nice? Or do we say, no, we're not doing the boys in the girls' locker rooms. No, we're not lighting up the State House in rainbow flags. No, we're not doing this whole gender crap. What I want a candidate that is not going to buckle. We had Podorchak here when they had the slush fund for the sexual titillations of the Senate and the congressmen and all of that. They have a slush fund for that. She voted against letting that stuff out, giving that information to us, because I believe that she is controllable. I think that Michelle Tafoya is controllable. So help me out here, man. Help me out. Why?
Yeah. So
do you believe
I
that
think
this is the best
parts to
path
that.
going forward?
Oh yeah, in Minnesota's 1,000%, and it's not even particularly close. Now, two parts I think to that, and so me as a Tea Party guy, like I said, I was a Ron Paul guy coming out of ranks. I was for Liberty's president of Minnesota. Like they're my people, like that philosophy. North Dakota, South Dakota, the establishment in some of these cases are egregious. And when I see like a Dusty Johnson lose in South Dakota, or when I look at like Wyoming and I see Governor Gordon there, who really, like to the point, refused to sign legislation that backed girls in their locker rooms and sports, even sign the damn bill. Like these people shouldn't be anywhere near us in red states. It full stop. Now, in the other same breath, Collins in Maine is a great asset. Though she's the second senator in this country on the Republican side, outside of Murkowski, in my opinion, she's at least an asset. She'll vote for the SAVE Act. She'll vote for some of this stuff. Otherwise, you're going to get Graham Plattner. Now, in Minnesota's case, we haven't won in 20 plus years. So we got to start somewhere and make our way from there. And just point blank, like, I mean, I've run statewide campaigns in this state. I kind of know what does well and what doesn't. And at a minimum, you need some candidates that can go out there and win the suburbs and even take a couple points out. And you have to get that. Otherwise, you just have no chance. And and I also, like, I'm a big Reagan guy with this too. Like, be a party that is proud to wave the proud pastels, be a bright party of conservatism, the shit on the hill, salt of the city. Like, that's what we should aim for. But at the end of the day, we have to get the most conservative candidate that can win. and still, like, I would push back on the Tafoya stuff there, where it's like she's pro amnesty. Well, really, just one article came out that kind of misinterpreted her interview. Come out and said, well, no, I'm against amnesty. She said she would look at the bill. Other things like choice, which I'm her on this. I'm an abolitionist, but Tafoya has the exact stance as Trump. Same exact stance. And I don't think Trump's very pro-life. Just don't. When you look at some of the issues, like even when he was elected the first time, I didn't like him in 2016 because I didn't think. But hey, we backed him, and he was able to overturn Roe v. Wade. And even if that's his opinion or not, he was able to get strong justices in there. And the argument I tell Minnesotans too, especially all conservatives like myself, is she's going to vote for constitutional conservative judges. At the end of the day, that's what we're going to get. And these other issues that might get a little murky on like the details of abortion and should we go? And also the fun of the abortion is Trump threw out the number 16 weeks during the 2024 election. Well, her stance has been 12, so it's longer than Trump actually. So that's what I tell. Look, you're not also going to get like Susan Collins. I think she's much stronger than Susan Collins. I think she would be more of like gosh, and I'm facing our current head of DHS. He just got appointed.
Mullen.
Why am I spacing?
Mullen,
Yeah, I would compare her more with that. What now?
The guy from Oklahoma,
Our
Mullins or whatever his name is.
Yeah, a guy from Oklahoma. That's why I'd more too. Where I kind of view him as an in the middle guy. When it comes to like the scale of republicanism and kind of put him in the middle, that's where I put her. At the end of the day, he's actually got more deportations out than Kristi Noem's had to this point, which I find fascinating. But he's just made about it. But at the end of the day, that's better results than what we were getting before, so that's a good thing. But at the end of the day, Minnesota, it's a tough state to win, especially with all of these things working against us. I'm a marketer, so like I am a big believer of if a tree falls and no one's around to hear it, the tree did not fall down. To know the tree fell down for it to have fallen down. If we the 100,000 count, the most demoralizing thing for conservatives in Minnesota, which it's already happened consecutive cycles in a row, so the last 2 to 4 to 6 years under Walz. Every single time we are losing population, conservatives to Florida, Arizona, Wisconsin, South Dakota, North Dakota, Iowa. We are bleeding voters. And if we were to lose again, I'm not that optimistic. I'm not going to completely close off for Minnesota. We can always turn it around because it gets so crazy that we do have a good independent base here that might try to flip it after one more cycle. If we were to lose again, man, we're going to lose 20 to 40,000 net residents, and a mass majority are going to be Republicans to win the state. So this is our one shot to go out there, win something, in, fight like hell, and push them to the right, and make sure that they're being accountable to their words and their campaign promises. And that's our recipe forward again in Minnesota. And we have hope. Because I'm seeing guys like Tom Tiff also in Wisconsin. I mean, the Freedom Caucus guy, love Tom. Looking like he has a decent shot, especially if they put up a socialist for the Democrat side, because they're getting overconfident with some of their more recent wins. And the same thing's happening in Minnesota. They're putting up for statewide office. Amy Klobuchar is the closest thing in the middle that they have right now. Everyone else are far left. We're talking Peggy Flynn, Keith Ellison. They're arguably the most leftist candidates in the country for their respective seats right now running in this cycle. So they're getting overconfident, and we have a real opportunity to actually strike on them right now. So I'm looking forward to it.
Can I get one tiny aside? I just gotta. I want to know, like, again, you got me. Who is me? You should check out my social media. You know where I stand. That whole thing. I wear it on my sleeve. I look at folks like Royce White. Now, I have no political dog in that fight, but I look at a guy like that, and I can identify with a guy like that. Where does he fit into that ecosystem? Because I believe that you need guys like him. But everything that I've seen out of the mainstream media and the commentators, they poo-poo that guy. And that guy is closer to a guy like me than anybody I've seen coming through Minnesota in a very long time. So where do you see a guy like Royce fitting in?
So I would compare him to what I think he should be versus what he is. I think he should be more like me in the sense of like a commentator who brings people into this process and into the system. Now, granted, he's not elected. I mean, he lost by 16.5% in the last election against a candidate who's going to be on the cycle, Klobuchar. So he's quite frankly just not electable state. He could run for like a local seat and have a shot at legislature, but he'd have to move out of Minneapolis for that to happen. But at the end of the day, this guy's extremely gifted. Like, I'm talking about probably public speak we have in this party, period, full stop. And I don't compliment Royce that much because he absolutely hates my guts, but because I'm pro Tafoya. But our politics are actually very aligned. It's kind of funny, but except for Israel, he hates Israel and I'm pro-Israel. Other than that, align on just about everything. And then just some of his personal stuff. And part of his personal stuff is drags him down a little bit. But that's why you get into the commentator space. You get into the activist space. You go and you drum up thing and you get the face fired up, but you also have to be actually
Elon Omar won it. I mean, we can't get one.
Omar, she won in 65. It's like an 20 Democrat. And she
didn't win governor though. She didn't win governor.
Comes within a couple. If she were to run for governor, she'd lose. There's been statewide polling on. I don't know why they do statewide polling on Ilhan statewide. Her advisors have told me as much as behind closed doors. Yeah, she's never going to run statewide. She'd lose. They've done polls the most disfavored congressional delegation, U.S. Senate or wide office in Minnesota. Like, that's saying something because we have Republicans in these deep red districts who have 90 scorecards, but they're more popular statewide than she is. It's kind of crazy to put it that way, but Ilhan Omar isn't.
She couldn't move 60 miles
in the deepest left district. That's what gets her in.
She couldn't move 60 miles away and win. She has to stay where she's at, right? I mean, she can't.
Anywhere else she would probably lose. She'd lose in CD2. Maybe she'd win in C3. That one's a little trickier, but yeah.
My guy Mike says I'm good with analogies, so I want to bridge the gap between you and Leon. Okay. First, we're gonna go to DeSantis in Florida. I'm gonna give you 3 examples, and I'm hopefully I can bring you 2 together. So DeSantis in Florida, who I'm a huge fan of, best governor in the state, in the country, but he wins by 16,000 votes. He barely wins to a coke-addicted leftist. Then after he wins, and he didn't win by running like Mr. Ultra, he didn't run as Royce White. He runs to the middle, a mega middle guy. But after he wins, he's like the boiling frog in water. He slowly but surely governs to the right, more and more to the right. Yesterday, he had the 4th budget in a row that reduced the money spent from the last budget. And all of a sudden, the state they're like frogs. They don't know they're being boiled. They're being moved to the conservative side. But it's so successful they sit in the water. Okay, that's my first one. I'm a Minnesota Wild fan. You can't win the championship without making the playoffs first. First, you have to win a series. They haven't won a series in 9 years. You have to win the first series before you get to play for the championship. Leon, not every state is the same. Alabama is not Minnesota, nor is Massachusetts. What's possible in one is not possible in the other. You have to win to govern. And then you can be DeSantis and move them because your policies are successful. You move them.
Or even I'd
Now
say
I'm going to give
too-
you one last one, Dustin.
Okay, yeah. Oh,
Are you familiar with Steve Dace?
oh, yeah, I love Steve. Steve's one of my favorites.
Okay. Me and Leon are Steve fanatics. We listen to him every day. I interviewed him on a show one time. So Steve Dace, Leon, you know this story because I know you listen to him every day. He endorses a Republican for governor in the state of Iowa.
Mhm.
The guy has a lot of energy to start out with. Steve is traveling all over the state to help this gentleman. I forget his name. Trump endorses Randy Fine, who Trump endorses a lot of
Feenstra.
idiots, but he endorsed another
Yeah.
one here. Randy
Randy
Feenstra.
Feenstra, yeah.
Yes, Feenstra. The entire state of Iowa can't stand the guy. They're worried that if he's the nominee, they're going to lose to a Democrat. So all of a sudden, a week out, this gentleman called Zach Lane has all the momentum in the state. He has a chance to beat Feenstra. Dace goes on his couch on a Sunday morning. After traveling the state for a guy, he says, I'm voting for him, but if you can't, vote for Zach Lane so that Randy Feenstra doesn't win. He's got friends now that won't speak to him because he helped another gentleman, even though he was going to still vote for his guy. But he recognized nobody's more connected in Iowa, right, Dustin, than Steve is. He knows what's happening on the ground. He can see it. My guy doesn't stand a chance. He's lost the momentum he had. But there's one person that can win and not turn us over to a Democrat. And the gentleman, Zach Lane, ends up winning by 1,700 votes. What Dace did that Sunday that caused him a lot of hurt, I imagine, a lot of sore butts with friends on his side. But those 1,700 votes might have come from that X post that he put out that day. I'll let you two guys hash it out.
Some of the TPUSA guys like when Steve did that, I was all right. We are coalescing because what I would have ranked those in that order. Steve's guy was the most conservative. This guy was the next most conservative. And Feenstra, behind all of them at one point, I believe. Like he was so down endorsed him, he got leveraged all the way up.
Yep.
And then then they went from there and said the most conservative candidate. And I don't even think let the Democrat win. Feenstra still would have wiped the floor with whatever the Democrat was. But then you would have ended up with a moderate Republican. And we need that. We don't. It's a red state. Let it be red. Let us govern like Kim Reynolds. Kim Reynolds was great. Let's do that again, but even better. Let's even try to improve. And Zach was the opportunity situation. That's just you nominate the most conservative candidate who can win, but red states, usually the election's done in the primary. In my opinion, the elections, Zach's gonna some battles he has to do because he's facing a tough Democrat in that state, but he's gonna win by 20, I think. But there's an example of how we get the most conservative candidate who can win, and we just happen to have to make the
Republicans just don't have a great track record. We tend to elect these focus group, focus tested Republicans, and I don't know. I'm frustrated. I see the country. I see us like with the SAVE Act. I see certain things that are happening in this country, and it just looks to me like we're moving decidedly left, just bit by bit.
After the state of Minnesota wins a playoff series, then maybe they can think about winning the championship. You know what I mean? And it might be a 20-year. Yeah.
That's my.
It might be a 20-year step, but you can't go be the frog and just be thrown into the boiling water and go, yeah, okay, I'm going to live.
And
with
when
this.
you get in,
the state of Minnesota,
you can lead by example, because this was part of the DeSantis model. He got in, and then he looked around the office and said, I don't know who's going to take this up next, and I'm going to leave as little as possible for them to have to actually build and grow on, because we're going to accomplish everything in my time here. And that's what he did. And then when Minnesota went a little blue and a little bit more blue, in tens of thousands of new voters to Florida, as well as everyone else in the country. Now, solid red as you could probably be in Florida. And that's going to be hopefully Minnesota. Yep. I think Wisconsin's on the current track right now. If they were to get Tom Tiffany in, I think that, well, I have Arizona with Andy Biggs. Andy Biggs, probably your next DeSantis model type right now, if he used to get it in, because they have a Freedom Caucus down there. But Tiffany in Wisconsin, that could be the new DeSantis of the Midwest if he were to get in. I'm very hopeful about that. I'd like to bump him up.
Ryan, you're a Minnesota resident. They're in Woodbury, Cottage Grove area. Give us your 2 cents on how you see this playing out and what you want to see happening.
As I've got for some of our later topics, and I'll kind of just touch on that now, I'd rather, with what we've been saying, you've got to win first and then you slowly bring them over, because otherwise you're going to go further down the left rabbit hole that we have the last 6-8 years under Walz, and especially when they had the Democrat trifecta with legislature, that got us so far in the hole. And if we don't win, we're just going to go further that way, which is, I'm hoping, why Peggy Flanagan gets the Democratic nomination. I may even vote for her primary just to help out, because I don't think she'll win a statewide election.
Lady who put on a job. Who's Catholic?
I mean, she's a nut job. She might be further out there. She might be further out there than Ellison and Walz, right? I mean, she's a true believer.
Yeah,
she drinks the Kool-Aid.
She's as far left as they come. She's probably the most far left U.S. Senate candidate running, in my opinion. That's why, and as well as Keith Ellison, he's by far the most left in the country right now. Those seats in particular are looking really good if we put up some, which we will. I mean, I've seen like Foya's leaned by 50 points in that primary, which is why I kind of laughed when Ryan said, I'm going to vote in the Democrat primary, because your vote matter more there, because Angie Craig wouldn't have 10 million as their model.
Angie Craig will be a tough fight, but
Angie Craig I'd be voting in the general, but Peggy, great to face off against.
Dustin, do you want to stick around or do you got to go?
I got about 5 minutes, I think. But yeah, if you guys got anything else, happy to cover it a little bit more. Yeah. So it's been a good lively conversation.
You guys Mike, you got anything to add to this?
Just, I mean, really quick, one of the things that I've said several times is, if you have Amy Klobuchar, if she wins again, you get 0 votes out of her for the next 6 years. If you have Royce White that would win, you might get 10, but likely you're going to get Michelle Tafoya. If you only get 7 votes out of Tafoya out of 10 every time, you're still getting 7 out of 10. That's 7 greater than 0.
Mm-hmm.
So it's maybe not the 10 that we're looking for, but at least it's an improvement over 0. And that's, I've said similar things over past shows and stuff, but it's a victory if we can get anything more than 0 votes. 1 vote is better than what we're getting from Klobuchar. So we just, I mean, it's been said several times that we just have to start with what we can get elected, and like I said, push them to the right a little bit. The voters are going to have to, pressure her to, hey, we need this, and maybe you'll get 8 or 9 votes out of her. You might not ever get 10, but it's still better than 0.
If it's
Dustin,
a
And even to
voter
that point, there's a
retention
lot of
thing,
Republican donors donating to Angie Craig because they're so worried Democrats. So they're even donating to the most moderate of the Democrats because they think it's their path to get 2 votes. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question.
And yeah, they see 1 or 2 better than 0.
I have a question for you, Dustin. You sounded a little pessimistic. If this happens to not go the way of the Republicans in the state of Minnesota, is Minnesota, California, is it over? You
I mean,
import
I don't think it's quite
100,000
over just with the
Somalis.
makeup state, but it's more and more dim with seen cycle. One of the reasons why there's still hope, no matter how, if we have a Democrat trifecta, it's probably done. But I think we're winning 1 state led bodies here. I think we're winning Senate, no question. We currently have a 1 disadvantage, and the House is a little bit more of an up, just with been recruited candidates on both sides. That's more of a toss-up, maybe even a little bit of a favor Democrats to win that from a tie right now. So if we hold one of those bodies or gain one, we'll be in good shape in terms of holding off a cycle. But if it goes trifecta, be done for. But I have confidence that because we have the candidates we are wide. I mean, I've seen the polling. We're going to have with Lisa Dameth, Ryan Wilson, and Michelle Tafoya at the top. Their money alone is going to be enough to win some of those legislative seats, with also given an opportunity some statewide elections too. In particular, that AG's office. It's so prime for Republicans right now. It's never been more. We haven't even that one, but one of the lawyers in the country is running right now. Shoots ran 200 attorney agency, one of the biggest in the country. I think he was labeled a top 200 lawyer at one point in the country. I forget which one of the two, but that office that he ran, one of the reasons why Schultz lost is it wasn't a trial or he didn't manage this before. Well, this guy's one of the in the country, in the world, and his office, he was 200 lawyers. The Minnesota Attorney General office is 250 lawyers. He ran an equivalent office basically already. So that's one thing that's really good in his favor. And I think Ellison at one point has been in the underwater 7 points for his favor. So like only 3% approval as a multi-time incumbent and a guy who's been in Congress for a decade before that. I mean, so Ron Schutz, great out wide, better than anyone else in the state. And as well, we got a shot at governor and U.S. Senate too.
I'm going to quickly ask you, because you're a social media presence, give us your opinion on what's happened to the right fracturing since Charlie's assassination. Give us quickly before you have to run. I'm really interested to know what you think of that.
Yeah, and honestly, it's just so disappointing. This is a little personal for me, and I'm fine going overtime on this one because it's an important one. But before Charlie was assassinated, for anyone who might know in the chat here, I was actually swatted. The leftist servers to call a fake on my home said that masked men had come home, shot my wife and kids, and I'm barricaded in the bathroom of my house and through the door right now or I will die. That happened. Just did that. The only thing separating Charlie Kirk from the average Republican in the eyes of some of these leftists, I won't say Democrats, is Nate. and name ID alone. And why did they go after like me or Gunther Eagleman or Nick and so on and so forth? It's because we have security targets with 1 point. And to see the right get so fractured the way, because some people are also the people with me are part of this. They're going after Eric Kirk. And it's just really disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
These people in this situation, they have lived the violence for them. And they still with this. And I lose a lot for those individuals in particular when they know how it is right. They know what time period we are in, and they still engage with that. There's genuine people out there in the influencer podcaster space who are doing our damnedest to win elections, to push us further to the right and create coalitions that can win. We're doing our best. And there's some that aren't even conservative, in my opinion. They're just in it for clicks. They didn't have like the upbringing in politics where they went and became a delegate and ran some campaigns and have decades of background as being a Republican and getting there. Some of them just were like, I can act. And then they went and put in microphones and act part. There's some of those influencers out there who I believe are closeted Democrat. And they're just in it for the at the same time. They can even fracture our part of the process, and they might even be for that. So you always just got to be aware of really into their past history. They stood on these issues over the years. They just pop up to get here. Was it like mine, or was it like very sudden and out of nowhere? Just look into some of the people that are involved in that. But at the end of the day, too, people are trying to chaos as much as they can, but just Republicans, but regular Republicans, just the hour we are in. And if one thing you walk away from, and the only separating you from Charlie Kirk, people knowing your name. That is it. And we see there'll be someone flying a Trump flag in their front lawn, they're mowing on, and someone's just walking along, they'll tackle you and beat you up. This has happened before. But they knew you're Republican because you're flying that flag, and they didn't like it, and you caught them at the right time. And there's some who are, and they'll plan and plot, and you end up being Charlie Kirk. So it's a very real thing when I talk with guys like Nick Sorter, where they will spend tens of thousands of dollars in just to go film content, wild world event, where you have to put that much security in view just for having opinions. So that's the world we're living in right now. Hopefully people understand what hour we are in as a country. And I'm not saying go cause violence and chaos. Don't do that. We're a party of peace. Don't advocate for that. But know that some people don't think the same of you. They don't think they could share a world, and they think the only means to handle political discourse is just move you from the equation. So it's a very real thing, and keep your head on whether you got 100,000 followers or 1,000 followers, because you just might have the wrong person in your circle and attention at the time. So that's the hour we're in.
Well, we appreciate you being on. This was entertaining. Minnesota matters. Three of us live in North Dakota here, but I'll speak. Ryan is my brother, and you want to go to. I spent a lot of time taking him when he was young to sporting events and things like that, and the state has just changed so much that I think I speak for a lot of North Dakotans. We don't spend as much time in Minnesota anymore because of those changes. Mm-hmm. And we'd like to see it go back the other way. You know what I mean? And get back to Twins games and Vikings games and spending time downtown Minneapolis and things like that. That certainly changed. So it matters to us.
Well, I remember that first time you took me to the Twins game in '87 was the first time I went. And, you know, we're going back to that time because we're now getting bathhouses back again in Minneapolis. So
progress. Progress.
Wow.
Crazy.
Dude,
Well,
thanks for sitting in the hot seat, taking a little heat. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
we appreciate it. Hopefully we'll have you back, okay? Have a nice 4th of July.
Well, awesome, guys. You guys have a good one too.
Yeah, thanks, Dustin.
Well, guys, that was entertaining. I don't know. That's pretty much the whole show. We're 55 minutes now. Let's I mean, and it was worth it. There's a perspective there that you know we don't have. Like I said, he's on the ground. It was a great get, Mike, to get him on the show. Let's just go right.
Grade A talent, like I said.
Yeah, you're a bigwig. Maybe you'll get some Hollywood people on eventually too. I don't know.
I'll never even approach anybody. From
There might be
Hollywood.
three. There might be 3 righties there. You know that we.
Mel Gibson. I'll see if I can get
There
Mel
you
on the
go,
next
Mel
show.
Gibson. Why don't we just go to our looky here segment? We kind of had an idea this week that we were gonna, because it's 4th of July, it's America's 250th birthday. Those don't come around all the time, do they? We thought we'd show favorite places we've been in the country. So we're gonna start with Leon, and is there a certain order you want these?
No, it doesn't matter.
Okay, we'll bring up this one. Explain it.
That's the Fay Dodo. As you can see, you can get pretty big beers there. Hurricanes, Jake shots, that sort of thing. This is in the French Quarter in Louisiana. I'm a Southern boy, you know that. So I miss it. Like I go through pictures and like the other picture with the horse, like that horse. Those officers, they just ride their horse right into the bar, get some water or whatever. They'll give the horse a little water, and they just go right back outside. They talk to the patrons. I just think it's awesome. I love it. I haven't seen another city that matches that spirit. Now, there's a lot wrong in New Orleans, but there's also a lot right. You go out, you're outside, you're mingling with people. It's all love, that sort of thing. And I just, when you asked for that, that's what came to mind. So, Fay Dodo.
I've never been there, have you guys? But I would love to get there to have the food. I would so much love to try the food there.
Yeah, you don't get this big without, eating good. So.
Mike, we're going to go to yours, okay?
Yep. So these show just a few pictures of me when I was at Independence Hall in Philadelphia. And I mean, just to be honest, there are very few places on earth I've ever been that gave me the feeling that I had when I was inside these walls. You think within those walls, ordinary men like us, accomplished absolutely extraordinary things. In 1776, the Declaration of Independence was debated there, approved, and signed. It boldly declared that all people are created equal and our nation would be free of tyranny. Then again, in 1787, delegates returned to Independence Hall there to write the U.S. Constitution, and that created the framework for the strongest and longest lasting democracy in the history of the world. Guys like George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, James Madison, some of those guys, they put aside their differences to build a government for the betterment of the people rather than themselves. And it's really the birthplace of the American dream. And, it reminds us that freedom is never guaranteed, but earned through courage and sacrifice and unity. And, all of us Americans are the beneficiaries of the decisions that were made inside these walls. And it's our responsibility now to preserve those freedoms that they fought to secure. So that was my favorite
I'm sure you
spot
got the
that
chills. I was to the outside of that building once upon a time, and it's pretty Philadelphia. Those are some tough people in that town too, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. Remind me someday to tell you about my cab ride. We don't have time today.
Ryan, you're next.
I went a little different way. I went with picture of scenic. You know, we've got so many different landscapes and beauty that, you know, just natural beauty here in this country. So this is a page from Antelope Canyons in Page, Arizona, which is northwest of Grand Canyon, about 4.5 hours either from Phoenix or Las Vegas, and gone there to run a half marathon out in the trail there. But it's right Page, Arizona. It's Lake Powell, Glen Canyon Dam. But these are slot canyons carved into the earth, not above ground, but these are below ground, created by wind and rain over the years in the sandstone, and just the way the sunlight shines in them on the, you know, when you're down in them, and the colors, the orange colors, I think are just quite amazing. They're about, when looking at them at the top, they're maybe about like 2 or 3 feet wide. You wouldn't even tell that this is below there. And then down below, they're maybe about 10 feet wide in some spots at the most, but you can kind of walk through them. But when the rain comes, it just kind of you know, runs like a flood through there, like a ravaging flood. But yeah.
Is what I imagine that's in the desert then. So is it really warm or?
Yeah, well, it's northwest Arizona, so it is a higher elevation. It is like 5,000-6,000 feet.
Okay.
So it's not desert like Phoenix, so it will get colder in the winter. But it's just right along the Utah border, northwest Arizona.
And they have walking paths through all that stuff? Or?
For the canyons there, it's on Navajo land, Navajo tribal land. So you have to take tours that are done by the Navajo tribes people. Since it's sacred ground to them, they lead the tours. So you aren't able to go in there and go on your own. But
okay, my turn. This is mine. This is Niagara Falls. Was there a few years ago. Nature's power, it was just mind-blowing and how beautiful it is. You get to be taken down into the falls, and then you can go on a boat and they'll take you right up into it, and you have to actually wear a rain jacket, and the mist will be going all over you. It's just majestic, and the country's so full of those places, whether it's the Rocky Mountains or Yellowstone or whatever. There's just so much majestic things to see, and this was something that was most recent, so that's the one I brought up. And there's different sections of it, but the beauty was amazing, and the different kind of lights you saw from the sun reflecting off that mist was just incredible. It was just amazing. But I recommend people go in there. And do you guys know anybody that's going to DC? We were driving last week to the cities, and somebody had on their van DC or bust. They were coming all the way from Alaska.
oh,
And it said America 250, and they were driving all the way to DC. So you guys know anybody that's going there this weekend for the Great American Fair?
no, don't know anybody.
It's kind of sad. There's even some states that are not putting up booths for this thing because it's Trump organized. It's just sad. But that's the state of the world we live in, I guess. I mean, I guess Pennsylvania just set one up here in the last day or so because the governor took so much heat from it that citizens just took over and put up a booth for Pennsylvania. And anyhow, we got the president coming here tomorrow, right? North Dakota for the Theodore Roosevelt thing. Well, folks, that's about it for episode 10. We hope you have a wonderful 4th of July. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Thanks, Mike, for getting Dustin on. Hopefully we get him back. Maybe we'll...
You want me to announce our week 11?
Yeah, go ahead, do that.
Okay. One of the hot topics again is data centers. Everybody's talking about data centers. So we're going to try to get some answers. And I asked Aaron Burst, who is the executive director of the North Dakota Association of Counties, to join us. And he said he would. So it's one of their top priorities. It's going to be a top priority going into legislative session this in the 2027 session here. And so we're going to have him on July 14th, and we'll have some good questions for him.
All right.
Oh, I got some doozies.
I bet you do, Leon. I bet you do.
Okay, folks, have a good evening. Thanks for